What's behind the record rise in global COVID-19?
Freefall in a crisis of historic proportions. Nearly 3,000 Americans reported dead in one day, the most since the coronavirus pandemic
Hearing
began.
the living hell out of people, and I see it again as like, oh, let's bludgeon Trump with this new hoax.
I feel like the more I learn about this, the less there is to worry about.
I was about to say the same thing. Let me tell you something. This virus should be compared to the flu because at worst case scenario, it could be
all the talk about coronavirus being so much more deadly doesn't reflect reality. Without a vaccine, the flu would be far more
Another
deadly.
attempt to impeach the president. And sadly, it seems they care very little for any of the destruction they are leaving in their wake.
The fact is that the majority of Americans turn to news outlets for their COVID-19 advice. But this brings up the question that if political biases within these news sources can contribute to a different number of cases from their respective viewers. As you can see, CNN and Fox News are the largest news outlets that Americans watch, covering about 78% of viewers. However, between these two platforms there is a clear political divide, with CNN being moderate to left-leaning and Fox News being right-leaning. Also, for comparison, I'll be using Al Jazeera, which is a left-leaning platform, as I take a look into how political agendas can correspond to the way that these news outlets present information surrounding the COVID-19 pandemic. I'd like to point out that while television provides the main platform for news, each news source also has their respective website that dives deeper into the stories that they're covering. The first news source that I'll be talking about is CNN, whose page is filled with helpful links surrounding the COVID-19 pandemic. This particular clip is from an article with the title, "Vaccine Scientist Says Americans Should Not Wait to Get the COVID-19 Vaccine Once It's Available." You can also see on the left side of the page that there are additional articles from accredited sources such as the CDC. Additionally, you can see that CNN is even covering how the COVID-19 pandemic is affecting other countries. The next source that we'll be taking a look at is Al Jazeera, who, upon entering their website, have a wonderful tab dedicated strictly to the coronavirus pandemic. This organization is left-leaning and tends to get a lot of their information from CNN, so a lot of their content is aligned as such. They report mainly on up-and-coming events that are happening surrounding the COVID-19 pandemic. For example, in the slide you see here, it speaks on how Joe Biden, the recent presidential elect, has decided to take with him Dr. Anthony Fauci, who is America's top infectious disease expert, to serve as his medical advisor when he takes office next month. The last news source that we'll look at is Fox News, who doesn't have near as many links surrounding the COVID-19 pandemic, but the one that they do have seems to be a bit confusing for providing helpful information. As you can see in the screen share above, it says, while experts agree the great outdoors reduce the risk of virus transmissions as compared to confined areas with stagnant air, they also say that there is a theoretical risk. And the vocabulary and terminology they use, such as theoretical, seems like they're trying to downplay it, almost as if the risk is maybe there and maybe not. However, later in this article, they go on to contradict themselves, saying researchers and health experts have said that viruses can stay in the air for an extended period of time, spread from person to person within close distance, and even remain on some type of surfaces, which can lead their viewers to a state of confusion as they provide contradicting details. This leads into the point that from Fox News downplaying the pandemic, a study hosted by NPR has found that those who watch Fox News with a political agenda aligned with that of the Republican Party have actually a 28% greater chance of getting sick from COVID-19 compared to those who watch CNN or other news sources. As a member of this society, the choice is yours for who you want to listen to whenever you're getting your news. What I suggest is stick with sources that remain neutral on topics, or even left-leaning that aren't aligned with the political agenda, as those are the sources that you can trust.